It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome in to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 76 today. We've been waiting all week for you, 167 hours. And now you are here, we are here, ready to enjoy the hour clothes-free living for all of the right reasons. The pool is ready to go, the hot tub is fired up, the grill is going full steam ahead, fruits and vegetables off to the right, some cold drinks off to the left, hot drinks, desserts inside. Make sure you eat the desserts that you brought so we don't have to put on 3,000 pounds over the next week here in the studio. And we also have the cigar bar back in the left corner of the pool. Help yourself. Lots of towels, lots of suntan lotion, plenty of sun, and of course that light breeze on the bare skin. Is there anything that feels better than that? Just on a regular Saturday or Sunday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? No, I don't think so. Living the life, clothes-free living for all of the right reasons. Glad you're here with us on episode 76. If you don't mind, if you'll take a moment to like, review, subscribe wherever you hear us. So we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Audible. We are everywhere. Wherever you hear this show, please like, review, subscribe. And as a reminder, we do give you a brand new show every single Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Drops on Spotify, goes everywhere after that. And as we did last year, we mentioned this a few weeks ago, we will be with you through the holiday season. Sometimes it's the greatest time of the year for people, and other times for other people it's not so great. Your friends are far away, your family's far away, and you're alone on the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and whatever else is celebrated around the world. Different cultures, different regions, different religions celebrate differently. And we don't want you to be alone, so we will be with you every single Saturday through the holiday season. We are taking no days off at all. We will be with you right here on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. How about that? Friends, even through the holiday season. Well, on today's show, we will have part 2 of my interview with Gareth Johnson. He hosts the podcast show Naked Men Talking. He's also a terrific writer, author, blogger. He does it all in the media world. So part 2 with Gareth Johnson today. We'll have part 1 of an interview with ANDEE RODGERS today. Part 2 will be next week. I think ANDEE RODGERS has been on this show more than anybody else. I haven't done the totals, but just thinking through, I believe she has. She has submitted multiple reports from nudist resorts, women in nude recreation for the American Association for Nude Recreation. She and her husband Tom have traveled around and present information to various groups. Well, she's appearing on today's show as the president of the Northwest region for the American Association for Nude Recreation. So ANDEE RODGERS today, part 1. And when Lisa Monroe gets in here, we will be talking about a letter we got recently about the stigma still existing around nudism, naturism, clothes-free living. He talked about the recent court case when the judge told the woman, "You were a terrific mom until you became a nudist." And he said you wouldn't say you were a terrific mom until you became a Catholic, or until you changed to the Jewish faith, or until you got a disability. No, we would never say stuff like that. Yet it still exists in the world. You were terrific and great, and I really liked you and respected you until you became a nudist. So we'll talk about that today, a letter that we received from a listener. Lisa will be here shortly. We'll take care of that then. Just a reminder, we are the official podcast for the American Association for Nude Recreation. Are you a member? If so, terrific. If not, you can become a member within moments. Just go to AANR.com and sign up today. How about that? Well, you're listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 76. Now let's get to part 1 of my interview with ANDEE RODGERS, this time as the president of the Northwest region for the American Association for Nude Recreation. We are traveling to the state of Washington this morning. We normally travel to Oregon to talk to this lady, but she's traveling again, this time to visit family. She's been on our show multiple times. You've heard her reports from various resorts. She and her husband, Tom, had submitted reports for a long time. They're finally taking a little time off. We'll get back to it in 2025. But she's not here this morning for that purpose. She's here to talk about what's going on in her life, which is she's the president for the American Association for Nude Recreation Northwest. Let's welcome her to the show this morning, ANDEE RODGERS. Good morning, ANDEE. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you bet. Good to have you back.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I haven't done the math yet. We started to, but then our calculators kept burning up. I thought, well, we just better let that go. I think you've been on this show more than anybody else.
Fabulous. I love that. I love being first.
So everybody knows ANDEE RODGERS around here.
Yeah, that's great.
Just when you didn't have enough to do, because I had heard a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, you found in your schedule 3:21 a.m. to 3:22 a.m. You had nothing to do, so you thought, I need to fill that 1 minute as I can be doing this 24 hours a day.
Sometimes it feels like it.
Yeah, although you're spending a lot more than 1 minute on what you're doing. But you're now the president for AANR Northwest. And how's it going? You just got elected this year and all that good stuff?
I did in August at our convention. We elected almost an entirely new board.
Wow.
So new president, vice president, secretary, and trustee.
Okay. Okay.
The last position there, trustee, and so very new board. I'm excited about that, and we're all excited to get things moving in the Northwest.
Yeah. Now, to be the president of a region, as you are, is that also a 2-year term, which can be renewed, reelected for 2 more years?
It is a 2-year term, and you can choose to run again, which I most likely will, but you can only run for 2 terms, so 4 years, basically.
Okay. Same with a board member or trustee, or not necessarily?
The trustee position, yes. I think the other positions can keep running because our treasurer beforehand, Terry, she did it for 14 years. And the secretary, I believe, was 16 years. And that was Jim Leahy. And he's finally stepped down. And because somebody volunteered to give it a go,
Right.
pretty big shoes to fill there too. So,
oh yeah, well, that's up in the Northwest, and I'm down in Florida, and yet we know those 2 names around here. So they've been around for a while. They've made themselves, president within the community, big shooters, big players.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
They've done a lot. But yeah, it's time they relaxed if that's what they want to do, and maybe they'll do it again. Who knows, right? They get a little antsy after a while.
Yeah, spend time with family.
Yes, absolutely. So what are you doing out there? I know you're making some changes, adding some things, taking some things away, which is normal for a new president coming in. You have a different platform, different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of tell us some things going on.
Well, the biggest thing I would like to do is connect our clubs together. And one of the things that we are doing for that is my vice president, Jim, not Jim Leahy, but Jim Renner is my vice president. Right. I'm asking him to put together a comprehensive calendar of all of our clubs, both landed and non-landed, with all of our activities so that we don't put another activity when a club is having maybe one of their main activities and encouraging us to go visit each other's clubs. And so we can look at a calendar such as that and pick the events we'd like to go to support the other clubs. Other ways are, for instance, the Willamettans comes up to Serenity, which is my home club. Smallest club, Willamettans, the largest club with members, and they help us in the spring. We call it Free Willy Weekend. And the Willamettans, we don't charge them for anything. We feed them their meals, and they help us with all of the projects that we have.
Wow.
Which is amazing because, we have several folks on grounds at Serenity that can do things, but when it's time to spruce up for the season, we need some help, and the Willamettans come up and they help us. So we encourage that. I'd like to see what other clubs need help with something and see if we can't figure out how to get them some help in some way. So connecting clubs together.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense. So if you have an event planned for a certain Saturday, somebody else says, not knowing you had that event, let's do it on that Saturday. And then you have two events on the same Saturday. Well, then some people have to split their time or not go to one.
Or not go. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, is you wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to go visit the other
Yeah.
clubs with their big events. So
Now, the calendar, I'm guessing each member of your region would have access to that whenever they chose
yeah.
to? Or,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll
Okay.
put it up on the Northwest website. I'll mail it out to all the presidents and the directors and clubs so that they have it and they can see it.
Perfect. Is there an overall general AANR calendar that would include your dates as well as the other regions, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So Jim Leahy would put out all the club news in the newsletter, and he would have to go onto everybody's website and figure out their their dates
Okay.
and kind of inclusively put that in the newsletter.
Mhm.
But that's awfully labor intensive for
Yep.
him. But so that's why I'm hoping for this other comprehensive calendar that we can offer to folks, because those big events don't usually change dates.
Right.
They're kind of set
Yeah.
in stone.
Yeah.
But
It's a great way to do it. Before we started recording, you had talked to me a little bit about direct members. Maybe tell people what a direct member is and what you're doing for those people.
So a direct member joins AANR directly. They don't join through a club, whether you're a landed club or non-landed. They just want to join AANR and support it and be part of that. And so we wanted to do something that focused our efforts towards those direct members, because sometimes they feel disenfranchised because they don't belong to a club. We created a Nude in the Northwest campout last year, and we chose the Alvord Desert in which to do so. And so we all traveled to the Alvord Desert, which is a playa, which I have never been on before, dry riverbed.
Wow.
And we had a blast. For the initial time together, it was 34 people, I believe, from 5 different states. We all just got together and had a fabulous time. And so we had a few direct members there, but we advertise to our direct members, hoping that we just want to give them something that is theirs.
Okay.
Anybody can come, of course, but
Right.
we wanted to do something for our direct members.
Is there an advantage either way to join AANR directly or to join through a club? Does it matter to the person joining?
Well, if you don't want to belong to a club, then absolutely it's an advantage that you can still join AANR.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of folks maybe don't want to join a club, but they do want to support nudism. And so
Okay.
you can do that. Or they perhaps just don't have time to join a club.
Yeah.
Like I said, that our club, takes a while to join our little club. The process is lengthier. Some other clubs, maybe not so much, but I believe at least 3 months, because you're doing interviews and you're
Yeah.
going to need to visit the club and maybe participate if it's a co-op. And that takes time.
Yeah. And you want to picture everybody at a club would want to picture, okay, we bring this person in 6 months from now, I'll be sitting at the pool with this guy or this gal. Is it a good fit or not? That's pretty important too.
Right. And some people just make really great guests.
Yeah.
So at a co-op, you need to bring your skills to it. And it's everybody pitches in and everybody helps out. And if that's not something that you want to do, you want to just come relax, joining AANR, not joining a club is the perfect way to do that. So
Yeah, I fully agree. The very terrific ANDEE Rodgers, one of our favorite people around here. She and her husband Tom do great work for the whole naturism, nudism, clothes-free living community, and hats off to both of them. Part 2 of my interview with ANDEE Rodgers on next week's show. Well, you are listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 76 today. We thank you very much for being with us. If you have not already done so, we ask and invite you to visit our Patreon page and become a patron today. We come at you every week with a brand new show. Whatever you can do to help us out, we'd appreciate it very much. I don't know about you, but I think I hear some music. Could it be? Yes, it is time for the one, the only, the completely over-the-top, our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the completely over the top, the completely clothes free, and 100% smiling, our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
Good morning, Frank. I am doing very, very well today. And how about yourself?
I'm doing really well. And I have to tell you, I noticed something about you when you walked in, and I seldom do this to people. And especially with stuff going on in the world, I almost never do this with women. But I'm going to do it with you. And if you want
Oh,
to hit me over the head, you can. I don't
hmm.
mean anything
Let
by it,
me
but
look for something. Go ahead.
you look a little different today. You look happier. You're smiling. You're more effervescent. Did you do something with your hair? Did something great happen this week? What's going on with Lisa Monroe?
Oh, well, I probably need a haircut, but no time to do it. Too busy with some show that we're doing. But no, I just feel good. It's just been a great week, and a lot of naked time, which is a good thing, and
Mhm.
just a lot of just life is good. What can I tell
Okay.
you?
I mean, you always come in smiling. When I tell people, completely over the top, completely smiling, it's because she is. Other than I think one time I didn't get back to you right away, I don't think I've ever known you to get angry, at least not with me. I have a feeling you could go there if you needed to, but I purposely avoid that part of your personality if it exists at all.
Yes, pay the proper respect and you don't get hurt.
I have so
And
many
you
comments
laugh.
to make.
No.
Yeah. So many thoughts just entered my mind. I thought, no, no, Frank, don't go there. Don't go there.
Oh, I know you should probably not go there, but that's okay. I'm really, truthfully, yeah, you've never really done anything to make me mad.
All right. Well, not yet. The day is still young. So,
Aggravated, maybe, but not mad.
okay. Well, I wanted to get into an email today. And this has come from a gentleman who lives in the state of Michigan. He asked that we not use his last name for sure. And I thought, well, to be safe, let's not even use his first name. We protect the privacy of everybody here when they ask for that. And we go out of our way to do that. But he sent a note, and at least if it's okay with you, I'll read the first two paragraphs, which are short. And if you don't mind taking on the big one in the middle, and then I'll finish up at the end. He starts off, I am currently on episode 51 of the podcast, so forgive me if this has been addressed already. And, by the way, this happens a lot. People
Mhm.
discover our show, and we're on 76 today, and they'll say, wow, I'm on episode 30, 40, 10, whatever. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to catching up. And they eventually do. But he's on 51. He says, as I continue listening to the Naked Nudist and Naturist podcast, while simultaneously trying to grow within the nudist/naturist community, I have come across an interesting concern that faces our community. That being the standing that we have in the general zeitgeist of modern society. And I went ahead and looked up zeitgeist. It's on the interwebs, therefore it must be 100% accurate, of course, right?
Yes,
That's how it
of
works, yeah. Zeitgeist is defined as the defining spirit or mood of a particular period of history, as shown by the ideas and beliefs of the time. So, with that, Lisa Monroe, why don't you take over and read the fairly lengthy middle paragraph, which explains the content of his email.
He continues on. I was watching an interview on closefree.com about a mother who was facing termination of her parental rights in Arkansas due to her being a naturist. The sitting judge on her case even mentioned, according to her, that she was a wonderful mother before becoming a nudist. This got me thinking of what would happen to said judge in the textile community at large had he altered the term nudist for another group. You were a wonderful mother before becoming a lesbian, or you were a wonderful mother before converting to Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or you were a wonderful mother before becoming involved with a partner of color. It amazes me that the nudist naturist community is held off into this box with such disdain that a judge is capable of potentially forming lasting decisions on such a fundamental constitutional right as the parental right to raise their children as they see fit. Clothes free or otherwise, I am now in a state of inquiry on if the clothes free way of life will ever be given the constitutional protections such as race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, national origin, age, and disability. Until that point, it certainly seems as though we are going to suffer an eternal struggle to make our way of life appear as something more than simply taboo.
All right. And then he finishes up with, of course, this message is simply to engage with and present some possible insight to my favorite podcast of highly intelligent individuals. Okay, he's just become our favorite listener of all time.
Absolutely.
It's that easy around here.
Yes, it is, and we got him fooled. What can I tell you?
To present some possible insight to my favorite podcast of highly intelligent individuals who I learn more and more about nudism, naturism through each listen. Well, we thank him. And again, that's a gentleman from Michigan in the professional community up there. We won't identify him or his profession due to wanting to protect his privacy. But Lisa, he brings up great points here. I have to say, you know, as he said, change the word. You were a great mom before becoming a nudist, apparently the judge said. How about you were a great mom before you broke your leg? Now you have a disability. You're not a great mom anymore. Well, that's absolute, unadulterated baloney, for lack of a better term, keeping it above a certain level here. And he has a very good point on that. Will we ever get to the point where, okay, you have a kid and now you've identified as gay, you're still a good mom, you're still a good dad? I think we've gotten to the point where people accept that now. You have a disability, you're still a great mom, you're still a great dad. Oops, now you're walking around with no clothes on. Well, now you're no longer a good mom or a good dad. That kind of puts it right out there, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and it's frustrating as heck because first off, he has the wrong definition of what a good mother is. Good mother has nothing to do with any of that. Good mother has to be with, nurturing and supporting and teaching and protecting their children, and none of those things have anything to do with that set of attributes for a mother. But it is, I guess maybe we're the last frontier of what people can actually, target and feel good about saying, "No, that's bad," and there you go. They I guess we're the final straw for people, and it's wrong. It's just wrong because they look at it as sexual. It is not sexual. There's nothing sexual about what we do.
Well, true. And I'm thinking back to even 30 years ago, which, since I tell people I'm 27, it's before I was born.
Mhm.
But I noticed even then, before I was born, that people within the gay community kept it hidden. Like,
Yeah,
oh boy, if anybody finds out, I'm going to get
yeah.
fired. I'll lose friends. And so they kept it very quiet. Well, here we are 30 years later. It's almost a badge of honor in some places to be gay. Okay. So what did they do to get that moved along? And I don't know the answer to that exactly. I mean, I do to a degree, but not all the way. And whatever they did, why don't we do the same? Would that make sense?
It certainly would make sense, and there was a tremendous amount of activism during that time, support in the court, support in the city council, support in the state governments, and even federal support to, not to discriminate, and it is discrimination. If you're going to look at our Constitution and believe it, then we are all equal. So therefore, the things that we use to define our daily life should not affect that equality. And so, but it was a long, hard struggle with a lot of effort and a lot of heartache and a lot of pressure on the people who did this for not only for gays, but for the women when we got the right to vote. I mean, it's that quality of life that we are kept from having, and when we strive to get it, there's so much pushback because people don't like change. And so guess what? That we're still the ones in the dark.
Yeah, and like he says, you change it from nudist to, he gave a bunch of examples: religion, race, gender, national origin, age, disability. You were a great mom until you turned 40, and then you went all to heck because now you're 40. That's why you became a bad mom, not because of what you've done, but because you had the audacity to turn 40. Or religion, you were a great dad until you joined the Catholic Church. You were a great dad until you became Lutheran or hooked on with the Jewish faith or whatever. We don't do that anymore in society. You do what you do. It's out of, we respect you. We might like it, we might not, but we respect it. But he's right. Not so with the naturist community, is it?
Not at all. And again, like I said, I think we're the last taboo in a lot of ways. Everything else is talked about, everything else is argued about. But naturism and nudism is considered extremely taboo. How dare you show things I don't want to see? Well, don't look.
Right.
I'm just serious. Don't look.
That's it. Yeah.
But I also have some pessimism as he does
Hmm.
about the course of this because I'm not sure because we can't fight like other groups can. Because if we fought and we're naked, then we just get arrested,
Yeah.
and if
Yeah.
if we did a peaceful protest nude, then we get arrested. If
Yeah.
gays or any religious sect or people who like, the Flintstones all did that, then they'd end up, probably having a peaceful march and that would be it and things would go away. So we have so many restrictions on what we can do that it's really hard to even fight back.
That's a great way to put it. And it seems like in any time throughout history, things have begun to change. It's taken people to step up, take a stand, and unfortunately, in many cases, get arrested
Hmm.
or get really bad publicity, lose their job. And we're not advocating for that. But we are advocating for our listeners to write in. What are your suggestions? How can we make this normal to everybody because we view it as normal. We've talked about that before. We're born with no clothes on. If we had been born with tuxedos and evening gowns or blue jeans and t-shirts, that'd be one thing. Okay, now you're taking your clothes off. That's kind of weird. No, we were born naked and we put clothes on. That's the weird part, putting the clothes on. So how do we get everybody else to understand this? We've been through this a million times. Yeah, media, society. You take your clothes off, it must mean time for sex. Not the case with naturism, nudism. It's just enjoying life to the fullest, the way we were intended to be. So as a listener, if you have anything to say, please let us know, and we'll share those responses a bit down the road. Lisa, any final comments today?
I was going to say, I think one of the big things that could happen, and I see this some in British television, European TV, and that is that occasionally people are nude. And occasionally it's
Mm.
not because they have sex. They're, they just may happen to be nude and cooking. I actually saw a show where a guy came to the door because he'd been cooking in the nude. So that kind of realization, if television and movies started showing people naked doing normal things, then it would start, I think, to become a bit more acceptable to people. But that's a long way off, and they're going to get R rated for it. So,
Yeah,
the general public's not going to see it.
that's right. Well, certainly food for thought today, and we encourage people to write in. How can we make this normal in the eyes of people who believe it's not normal? And Lisa Monroe, with that, we are going to have to head for the hills. You look extra happy today. I'll just put it out there again. Go out there and have a great close free week. We'll talk again soon.
I certainly will, and I hope you do too. And yeah, we all need to stay happy.
There you go. Have a great week.
Bye.
The terrific Lisa Monroe pops in for these segments, does all of our website work, our Patreon work, our merchandise work. We are working her to the bone, and she hasn't complained yet. So we appreciate Lisa Monroe for all that she does for this show. Well, you are listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 76 today. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you had a great week. Hope you're having a clothes-free hour, enjoying clothes-free living for all the right reasons. And now let's get to part 2 of my interview with the man who hosts the podcast show Naked Men Talking, part 2 with the very terrific Gareth Johnson. Now, I put on YouTube, we put a preview every Wednesday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Sounds like an ad, so it'd be 11 o'clock for you, Gareth. We put a brand new YouTube preview of the upcoming Saturday show. It used to be 15, 16, 17 minutes long. Now it's 5 or 6, 7 minutes long, just to give people a little snippet of everybody who's coming on the show. Well, one of them had a website with the word nudist in it, and totally non-sexual, has nothing to do with that. It's as I like to say, clothes free living for all the right reasons. Well, I put it in the show notes on the YouTube clip, nudist and whatever else is in the title. Well, I got in trouble from YouTube for that. They actually took us down for a while, and then they gave us some kind of penalty, whatever they do for using the word nudist. or depending on how you interpret it, for putting such a raunchy, nasty website in the show notes. And if you go there, it's not raunchy at all. You don't see anybody naked. You might, it's alluded to. You might see a woman's bare back or a man's bare chest, but no actual nudity that wouldn't be allowed, at City Hall. So I don't know what the answer is, but where do you post on your own website? Do you post on Vimeo as well, or anywhere else?
I have to confess, I've been banned off YouTube specifically for the reasons that you're talking about. So I've given up on YouTube. But so that's why I do publish things on my own website, because at the moment that's something I'm in control of. I can decide what goes there and what doesn't, and so I feel confident with that. I use Twitter because obviously their community guidelines are a bit wider in terms of the content that you can share on Twitter. So I find that useful as well. But I do try to reach audiences wherever they are, which means you've got to be a bit proactive. You can't sit back and wait for people to come and find you. So it's always a daily struggle to think, right, where could I post this today?
Yeah, no kidding. We have to be careful here. We get knocks on Twitter as well for things that aren't even nude. We don't publish nude stuff on Twitter. We allude to it, like when we post your show on Twitter, we'll have the title of the show, Naked Men Talking, but we're not going to have full frontal men in the Twitter promo. We just don't do that. But they're always looking for that. Now, I saw a couple of videos on YouTube. One somebody sent me, one I found on my own a year or two ago, whenever it was. One was a fashion show, and it was all women models. They came out 100% clothes free, not a stitch on. What they did have on, though, was some jewelry. Like one woman would have a ring, one woman would have a pair of earrings. And they said they stripped away all the clothes. They were fully nude. So you would focus on the jewelry. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, right. Most men are going to fire it up. Oh, honey, look at the pair of earrings on the blonde over there. Yeah. But it's still up there, and they're allowed to get away with that. The other one was an alleged medical training class, kind of like a college lecture hall. All the seats were up. The stage was down below. And all of the audience, female, and all of the doctors and nurses were female. And they brought a naked guy out, and they showed various ways you examine a man, when you become a doctor. And it went on for about a half an hour. The guy fully nude. Obviously, we know what's going on. I mean, how many medical schools are 100% populated with women? I don't think any. but that's still up there, too. So if they're going to let stuff like that go, which I don't have a problem with either one, why not a show like yours?
Yeah, I have given up trying to understand things because if you end up getting angry, and that doesn't help anyone. You just have to accept that, most of these platforms, they're not built for me, for us. They're beyond our control. They're someone else's business, and they're making decisions that suit their business, not me. That's fine. We'll agree to go our own paths and find our own way. But there's no point getting angry about it.
Well, yeah, because we can't solve it. We could band together and make a little bit of noise, but eventually they can just say, "Hey, we own the platform." The answer is no. And then,
exactly. Yeah.
And then we're in worse shape than when we started. Well, some of the guests you've had on there, you've had quite a variety. I can't look at over 100 episodes and say, "Oh, okay, I see an ongoing theme here." It seems like every guest brings something new to the table. Is that intentional? Do you look for that, or do they look for you, or how do you get your guests? You seek them, or they seek you?
It started with people I knew, because I sort of said, okay, maybe I'll do 10 episodes and see how it goes. And, so let me just hit up people I know who I can bully into being on a call with me and ask questions. So, let's proof of concept this and see where it gets to. So that sort of went fine. And I started sort of reaching out to people I had some sort of social media connection with. So like, you follow various people who are doing interesting things. And so I'd start to approach people. And I guess as my confidence grew in terms of what I wanted the podcast to be and, the style of conversations that we're having, I just became, I more proactive in terms of reaching out to people, but also people started to contact me to say, "Oh, I will, know someone who would be a good fit for your show, or I have something interesting I'd like to share on your show," and so that's really helpful as well because finding the right people to have who can bring something interesting to the conversation to the audience. It's really what makes or breaks something like a podcast. I think, as you know full well. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a 1 hour show every week, and roughly half of each show is dedicated to a guest. So if the guest is bad or has nothing to say, or I don't connect with the guest, well, that's a whole entire half of a show that's in the trash, and nobody's going to listen to it. And they might not come back the next week either, or 10 weeks later. No, I heard one show and it was trash, at least half of it. So you have to pick your guests carefully. But I have found people in the naturism community very open. First of all, they're open to begin with because they walk around clothes free. Have you found the same thing with men in general, specifically naked men who are willing to talk?
I think so. In general, yes. Most people approach it in a really sort of authentic way because they know that they're coming in to share personal stories. So they're not taken by surprise. They're not, it's not gotcha journalism where you're suddenly trying to get information out of people that they weren't prepared to divulge. It is about, let's have a bit of a safe space and share, your journey, where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, that kind of thing. I think that the thing that I found, perhaps it's obvious in retrospect, but I wasn't really expecting it going in, just probably because of the timing of when I started things, was the big factor that everyone's experience of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns associated with that, and how fundamentally, almost for everyone, that seems to have played a really key role in rethinking who they are, what's important to them, their relationship with their body, the relationship to the world around them. And, that does seem to be something that often they find it difficult to articulate, but is such a strong connecting theme throughout the conversations. They'll all often start a story with, "Well, it was during the pandemic that I did X, 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 X."
That's true. There's a lot of that started. A lot of people started podcasts during the pandemic, and some are gone, some are still around. I don't mean naturism people, but just anything in general. Like, I have nothing better to do with my time. What the heck? I'll start a podcast. A lot of people did that too, didn't they?
What did you do during the pandemic that started things fresh?
See, here we go again with the Johnny Carson, Dick Cavett thing. You're asking me the questions. I'm the host here.
All right, you can choose not to answer. That's fine.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I had lived about 1,000 miles away from where I live now, and the plan was always to move where I am now, which is in Florida. And so a lot of the I call it the plandemic, but the pandemic, a lot of the pandemic COVID thing was making more preparations to get the heck to my new house. So I guess that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Certainly holed up in the house for a long time. I remember one day I walked outside. I don't know how many weeks it was into the COVID thing, the lockdown. Can't go out, can't communicate with any human being. And it was trash day. And I have a recycling bin, and everybody in the neighborhood did. And I happened to look outside the window, and there was just trash all over the neighborhood. It was a very windy day. And so I had taken, papers and paper products and blown it all over the place. So, okay, I'll go out there and do that. And as I was picking it up in broad daylight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, people were popping their heads out of their doors. Hey, it's good to see you, Frank. And I realized, they're really lonely. There's a lot of lonely people out there, and they got lonelier. And, the ones who were single and had nobody living with them, no kids, no nothing. And I think that has had a debilitating effect on a lot of people and maybe the world in general. What do you think? Just people who are alone and they haven't recovered yet.
Yeah. And I don't think we've really seen the impacts of that play out fully yet. I think that all of that is still sort of stored within us, that sort of trauma that we're holding within our bodies almost of what was a really extraordinary time for everyone.
Yeah.
But loneliness is such, even just outside of, the pandemic impact, but loneliness in sort of our modern world just seems to be such a growing, I guess, sense of unease that we're not quite sure how to help people with this, how to help ourselves, that we're all sort of aware that we're becoming isolated. we're getting a lot of our interactions online. We're not getting the sort of touch and intimacy that as humans is a really basic need. And I don't think we've got any answers yet. And that's really disturbing.
Oh, it is. And just hanging around the workplace. Let's say there are 10 people in your office or 100. It doesn't really matter. It could be 1,000. Walking down the hall. Hey, how you doing? Hey, did you see the game last night? You spend 2 minutes in the hallway talking about a game or, water cooler talk. Hey, did you hear about, whatever? A lot of people have lost that now because they're working from home. They're interacting on the computer, but they only put the computers on when it's time to have a meeting. They don't have the computers on all day and talk about the game. And so we've lost a lot of that. Do you see a return to, in quotation marks, normal from all this or not?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I'm not sure normal's a helpful word in that context, is it? I think where we're going will be different to where we've been. But what has been interesting, I think, because certainly, from a naturist perspective, that there was certainly a lot of online activity coming out of that has certainly seems to be a huge appetite for, as you talked about, in-person interactions and reestablishing doing things in the real world. And so we're seeing sort of a lot of appetite for small events, small group events, things that get people together. And, particularly from a social naturism point of view, but even just from having conversations, sharing food together, really people are much more up for let's make time to get a group of people together than perhaps they were before.
Yeah. Have you found an increase in naturism as well? Because people were home either together with other people or alone. So why get dressed? I'm not going anywhere. I have had people tell me that, I always had my clothes on until the pandemic, and like, what am I getting dressed for? No one's going to see me. I can't go outside. No one's coming in. Have you seen the same thing too?
I think so, definitely. I've been hosting recently a series of naked co-working events. So it's working from home together naked. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that on your website. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really popular.
Yeah.
People really like it, particularly because they've come from that experience of enforced working from home where they were already doing it naked. And so they've got used to that mindset. But there's something really interesting just in terms of the dynamic somehow of doing that with other people. And so we get together and, it's a group of maybe 6, maybe 10 people, not huge numbers, and it's quite surprisingly productive. Everyone reports that, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work, but I came in, I got a lot of work done. There's opportunities to chat over a coffee. We maybe schedule a break halfway through and sit around and check in with each other. But most of the time, everyone is just busily working on their own projects, doing what needs to be done. But it's that sense of sharing the space with each other that somehow makes me feel like I'm not as isolated as I was, and that I'm finding some sort of human connection here.
Yeah, which makes sense. And we all have that need for it. Some admit to it, some don't. But we have a need to be with other people and around other people. Maybe not all the time, or some do. I know some people who can't exist unless there's at least 1 or 50 people around them. Other people can exist alone for a while, but after a while, if I go to the local post office, I live in an elderly community. There are a lot of people substantially older than I am, as in 80 plus. If I go to the post office, almost every single time there'll be an older person talking to the clerk at the post office about everything and nothing. It's like, hey, lady, could you hurry? Because I need some stamps. And she wants to, I planted some tomatoes the other day and my grandkids are, because they have that need to connect with people, don't they?
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah. And a little bit sad, but I feel for the post office clerk, really.
I think they hire them for these jobs around here.
Must be a good listener.
Yeah, exactly. Same at the grocery store. They're always talking about everything and nothing. It's like, okay, so I've learned to relax instead of saying, hey, if I had a horn, beep, beep, could you move? I got 10 items here I want to check out. I just, okay. They have a need for that. They have the interaction need. You have a very good voice for radio, and that's been one of my pet peeves in life. With all these podcasts out there, now I think we're up to 3 million. I saw I'd heard 2 million, now 3 million, and people aren't trained for it. They didn't go to school, they didn't practice. They just, hey, I'll hit the record button, start talking about whatever, but they haven't trained their voice. You have a very good voice for radio. Is that intentional? Did you develop it? Were you born with it or what?
Oh, thank you. That's a very nice thing to say. At least you didn't say you have a very good face for radio. That would have been less kind, I guess.
That's true.
um, I, I guess I have done some stuff in terms of, you know, basic theatre kid stuff like everyone does, and a bit of amateur radio things here and there. So it's something I guess I've been comfortable with before, starting to produce podcasts. Was I was comfortable with a microphone, comfortable with how to talk to someone. Also a bit of a journalist background, so you sort of get used to being able to frame questions to help people share information with you in a constructive way. So but I also think it's perhaps not a prerequisite for a podcast. I think having a nice microphone that can make your voice sound a bit richer and a bit easier to listen to is really useful. But what's interesting, I think, with podcasts is that it has really brought such a range of different voices to us that we might not have been able to access through sort of traditional media sources. And so you're able to hear people's firsthand stories and firsthand experiences and their interactions with each other in a way that almost transcends, do they have a nice voice to listen to? It's like, have they got something interesting to say, I guess, is perhaps more important.
It probably is. I'm a little bit partial to the radio because I grew up on radio and I've been doing it forever. And I was on terrestrial radio for a while, which is a totally different ballgame. That's live and in person, and what you say is what everybody's hearing. There's no editing later on. And I went in and got the job, and they said, before you go, we want you to record a 30-second promo. Tell our listeners who you are. We'll play it every hour, and so they know you have a new show coming up. Oh, okay, whatever. And so in my mind, I put some thoughts together, and it took me in the studio, and they said, whenever you're ready, start talking. You got 30 seconds. So I did it, nailed it exactly on 30 seconds. And I said, well, they hit stop. I said, well, how did I do? They said, how in the world did you do that? I said, what? They said, first of all, your voice was perfectly centered on the microphone. We captured every word perfectly, and you were 30 seconds on the nose. I said, because I've been doing it for 273 years.
Because I'm a professional. Exactly.
Yeah. I kind of related to cars. I don't know anything about the mechanics of a car, the inner workings of a car. I know how to drive one and put gas in one to wash the windows. That's about it. So if I have an issue with a car, I have to take it to somebody who knows what they're doing, a professional, who was trained, went through schooling, understands the in and outs, and has probably serviced 200 cars in the last year with my identical issue. And so when it comes to radio, I'm a little partial to those who put time into it. Not everybody's going to have a great voice, but you can always get better in just a more professional presentation, I guess, which is what you have. And that's all I was pointing out. Just you sound very good on your show.
Oh, thank you very much. I think that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Well, there you go. All right. And I won't say you don't have a perfect face for radio because you do video as well. So
I know the proof is out there. People can see, make their own judgments.
So what kind of things are you doing in your journalism career? Now, I know you're a reasonably prolific writer. That's kind of your main thing, as I understand. But what do you cover? What kind of stories?
That's true. Nothing serious. Nothing. I'm not doing anything that's going to win any awards. It's not tackling the big stories. I work for a range of different LGBTQ community sort of publications. I do a lot of work in terms of dating and relationships and health and lifestyle. So that's why I'm very interested in talking to people about body image and their experience of getting naked. That's right up my alley. But it's not breaking news in any shape or form.
Okay, but it keeps you busy and off the street and out of trouble.
Well, some of those things anyway.
At least some of those things, some of the time. Like on your page for your podcast, it's the gtv.blue. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But obviously you have the title of your show, Naked Men Talking, the podcast. But the subtitle I like a lot, Exploring Naturism and the Power of Getting Your Clothes Off. What is the power of getting your clothes off in your view?
Ooh, good question. I probably wrote that without really knowing the answer, but I'm not sure. Still not sure I know the answer, but I guess if I was going to take a stab at it, it seems to be that sense of liberation that people feel, that sense of being able to let go, you know, self-doubt, anxiety about who you are and how you look, and being able to exist in a space that is perhaps a little bit more true to who you are, a little bit more authentic to who you feel you should be as well.
Okay. Yeah, perfectly understandable. Also on your website, now we don't get into the sexual thing. It's, non-sexual, non-swinging, all that stuff. But on your website, you do have a section so we can advertise for you if people are interested. Erotic fiction, but it looks like you have to sign up for that and actually pay a fee. Is that correct?
That's true. I do write a fair bit of erotic fiction, just really for fun, and it's just something I enjoy writing fiction, and erotic stories seem to get a really strong response for a range of reasons, I guess. The website, it's a evolving sort of feast, but the heart of it, I guess, is a newsletter that I produce each week, and which showcases the latest episode of the podcast. It showcases whatever else I've been working on that week, and people sign up to that for free. So it's free to sign up to receive the newsletter. And then if you want to access some of perhaps the racier stuff, such as the erotic fiction, then there's a small fee to pay to access some of those things that perhaps not everyone wants access to.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought I'd point it out to give you a little advertising for those who are so inclined. But you said you write a weekly post or on your blog, which describes the show you just did or the show coming up or what?
It's as each show is released, which is each Wednesday, then the newsletter goes out after that, which details what the article was, what the interview was about, and also anything else that I've been working on in terms of writing and that kind of stuff.
Okay. I saw you had one, I think it was last August, could be wrong on that, July or August, where you talked to a gentleman, Nicola. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But in the description on your blog, you talked about the Olympics because the Olympics were going on at the time. As you know, the Olympics used to be nude. We had no clothes on in the Olympics. Some point they came on. Do you think we'll ever get back to that? Because to me, I mean, the human body in athletic form, that's the epitome of when you should be naked. Any thoughts on that?
I'm totally with you. I think this Olympics particularly has been a win-win for those of us who appreciate a man in lycra. I think we've seen a lot of great lycra action this Olympics. We've seen a lot of showcasing of the human body at its peak, and I think that's to be applauded. Whether that's going to translate into a demand for clothes-free sports events, I think we should look at the pole vault and see if that can be done in, naked. I'd be in favor, but I'm not sure it's going to happen in the short term. Not Los Angeles 2028, I don't think.
Sadly, I think you're correct. It would be nice because that is the human body, the human condition, athletic endeavors. That should be nude. I think all sports should be done in the nude unless it requires some special clothing or padding, like American football. You can't go out there naked for that. You get killed. You do have to wear pads and helmets and everything else. Like you said, track and field, yes. Swimming should be mandatory. That's it. If you even show up with a swimsuit at Olympics for Olympic competition, you're out. You got to go home. You can't participate.
I guess the counter argument would be the water resistance, moving through the water. Are you as streamlined as possible? So maybe you could probably mount a scientific argument for I might get a slightly faster time if I'm super streamlined.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, and we'll let them have that one. What about something like rowing?
Well, that's a no-brainer. They don't need to be in those singlets, do they? No.
Okay. Now we're on the same page here. Maybe one of these days we'll get around to it. Who knows? There's a magazine out there. I don't remember which one it is. It might be Sports Illustrated. But once a year, I don't know if they still do it, but they had the nude version, the nude edition, the naked edition, whatever they called it. And they would have famous athletes in America and even some international athletes pose in the nude for this sports magazine. Now, you didn't see the so-called parts you're not supposed to see on Main Street, But you knew they were naked, 100% naked bodies of athletes. So somebody gets it. It's just a matter of universally getting it, right?
I've seen that edition. There's that great image of Gus Kenworthy with his skis in the snow, isn't there? And so that's from that series, I think. But actually, what was interesting, one of the stories that emerged from this Olympics, I'm not sure if it got much coverage in the States, but certainly in the UK, particularly centered around the men's diving team, was a discussion about how many athletes were having to use fan subscription platforms such as OnlyFans in order to fund their training fees, their cost of living, that because government funding is insufficient for elite athletes in the UK, that they're turning to fan subscription platforms and showcasing their athletic bodies in order to fund the sports that they're pursuing.
Yeah, and I saw on Twitter, there have been a couple of posts on this where somebody posted, okay, the Olympics finished. Here are the best looking bodies that we saw during the Olympics. And they post all these athletes in clothes, of course, because they wore clothes for the competition. So it's out there. I mean, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but I would say most people, when you watch an athletic endeavor, hello, you're looking at their bodies because they're there. It's not as though you can look away. They're there. Whatever uniform they're in, football, baseball, basketball, swimming, diving, rowing, they have something on, and you notice the human body. We all notice the human body. I just think all sports should be in the nude, unless, again, you have to have some protection for the sport you're playing. But I don't know. Maybe that could be a topic for your show. How's that sound?
I'm happy to investigate that in depth. Absolutely.
It's really been great to talk to you. It's nice to touch base with somebody who does what we do here. You run your own podcast. It's been Gareth Johnson. And we want you to check out his show, although it comes with a little bit of a warning. I hate to use the word warning, but they do get a little sexual at times. So we don't on this show. So, proceed lightly, but we'd like you to check it out. He does a great job. Naked Men Talking is his podcast. And Gareth, before we let you go, tell our listeners again how they can find you and how they can find your show.
Amazing. Available on all podcast platforms, Naked Men Talking, or find me on Twitter at GTV London.
Okay, gtv.blue. What is that all about? I wanted to ask you that before we go. Does the blue refer to as something a little off color like we do in America, or not necessarily?
Well, possibly, although I was really just struggling to find a domain name, a URL that was not too expensive was my criteria, really. It had to sort of make sense and not be too expensive. And the .blue suffix is relatively inexpensive, and I wasn't sure how that translated in America, but certainly in Australia, to refer to something as a bit blue is a bit on the adult side, and so it felt appropriate for the type of content that I write about and create.
Yeah, it definitely what it means here. Now, how often do you release a new show? Do you have a schedule? Is it basically when you can get a guest, you release a show, or how do you proceed that way?
I'm trying to be a bit more organized, and so that a new episode comes out every Wednesday, and I'll try and share that across as many platforms as possible so people can see it. But the plan is one episode a week coming out each Wednesday.
Wow. All right. Very good. Well, great to talk to you. Great to meet you today. Gareth Johnson from Naked Men Talking. Check out the podcast and Gareth Johnson. And go out there and have a great clothes-free day. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much. Great to meet you.
You too. Thank you. The very terrific Gareth Johnson, host of the podcast show Naked Men Talking. He's also a terrific writer, journalist, author. He does it all, so check him out. His website is in the show notes, and we thank Gareth Johnson for all of his time on these last two shows. On the next two shows, which will be episodes 77 and 78, our featured guest will be Melody Munson. She is an artist, an illustrator, an author, an actress, a comedian. She does it all as well. And she's appeared with Tim Chismar in his productions, The Noodles of Nudeland, as well as Naked and Not Afraid. Well, you've been listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 76 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.